It's been 24 hours since we got the announcement of the ceasefire, and we could see that we are now turning green on the weekly, on the daily, and on the hourly. And it's lovely to see some nice moves happening in this market. And on the daily, we could actually see that it's not just some altcoins. No, we're also starting to see some bigger projects flipping green as well, including even Bitcoin. This is great to see. Now, if we actually look at the overall market, Bitcoin back to 106.5K, Ethereum over 2,400, XRP at almost $2.20. Now, for the most part, altcoins are kind of taking a little bit of a back seat here while Bitcoin decides what it wants to do next. But on the daily, we are seeing a lot of great gains, like Maple, for an example, up 22.8%, C up 20.7%, Stacks up 12.5%, and across the board, we just see some nice, gains. When it comes to the actual market itself, let me just make sure that this is up to date. So we have a $3.29 trillion market cap for crypto, fear and greed back to neutral territory, and the overall market just looking pretty good here, looking pretty solid. I have been keeping a close eye on XRP and on just Bitcoin alone because Bitcoin itself is the major determining factor on what happens next. Right now, we are hitting those highs from roughly the 20th, and we're watching for a close over these. Throughout the week, we're going to start to see volatility pick up a bit, in my opinion. I do think that the main focus right now is on stocks to make a new all-time high, because I do think that right now, stocks are kind of lagging behind crypto. We already had the price action over the weekend. Stocks didn't really get hit that hard. So we're still watching for stocks to make a new all-time high, because I think that that's also going to put a lot of pressure on crypto to really kind of get the ball rolling with some higher price action as well, even though, Bitcoin already did make a new all-time high back in May. But overall, price action here is pretty good. I do want to see some more price action out of Bitcoin. We'll talk about exactly what I want to see here in a bit. With XRP has just been kind of trailing sideways while, we wait for something to happen with Bitcoin and Bitcoin at dominance, because dominance is still well over 65+%. And I hate to break this news to you guys out there, especially a lot of you, because I know that you guys are mainly altcoin holders here, but altcoins are not going to be set free until we see dominance really drop on Bitcoin. We're still very well in a Bitcoin season. If we go back over here to cryptocurrencies and we go to altcoin season index, we could see that we are deep in that, Bitcoin season still at 18 out of 100. Typically, until we get to like about 50 or 75, altcoins are going to be sleeping a bit. Some of them will have nice, bounces in the market, but we're not going to see those very significant gains until we actually start to see us really kind of move out of the Bitcoin season. And during that time, we also are going to be focused on Bitcoin at dominance, because we want to see dominance really shift here. We want to see altcoins really kind of steal the show a bit. And until that actually happens, we're not going to really see much action across the board. So still waiting patiently on this. I think that it's going to be, worth the wait, because once we kind of get into that altcoin side of the market, I think that Bitcoin is probably going to be breaking over its previous all-time high, and we will see, moves similar to 2021. Might not be the same exact, volatile gains, but I do think that we will see, pretty good gains this cycle. So definitely stay tuned for that. But outside of XRP and outside of the market, let's actually talk about the ceasefire, because everyone was talking about what was happening with the ceasefire. Over the last 24 hours, we got the announcement, and then all of a sudden it was, all right, what's happening now? Because I thought that, we were in a ceasefire, and then all of a sudden CNN and all of these, mainstream media outlets are reporting that the ceasefire is off because more attacks are happening. Trump did say fake news. CNN, together with the failing New York Times, have teamed up in an attempt to demean one of the most successful military strikes in history. The nuclear sites in Iran are completely destroyed. Both the Times and CNN are getting slammed by the public, because, again, what we are starting to hear is that the nuclear sites are not, destroyed, that, they're still ongoing, that they're only months out from having nuclear weapons and this, that, whatever. So, again, it's just a back and forth thing with media and politics. And ultimately, guess what? It's all noise. In my opinion, I don't even think any of this really matters. The only thing that we really wanted to see was, war being avoided. That's like the main thing here. Okay. If we can avoid war and we can have the price action that we want, that's all good. That's exactly what we want to see here. But I do think that we're kind of in that manipulative, part of the cycle where we're starting to see all these scary headlines coming out and all these, major things being announced and talked about. So that's going to impact the price action. It's going to shake the tree a bit. And I think that during this time, the best thing to actually focus on is just the fundamentals around crypto and what's happening with crypto in the US and globally. And right now, crypto itself, the entire market, not just Bitcoin, not just XRP, the entire market is being embraced on, center stage, which is very good to see. And it's actually very bullish. Now with XRP and even with Bitcoin, I want you guys to understand that we have this deep liquidity wick on XRP. This is what the daily looks like just for reference, right? We have that, deep sell off. We have a nice little jump here. I want you guys to understand that lower price action is not out of the picture. We could still see, significant lows being ran across the board. I don't want you guys to get extremely bullish here yet until we start to see highs reclaimed. The key thing here on XRP and the key target that I really want to see reclaimed on XRP, we could even just round it to $3 or $2.30. So we really want to just break over these previous 3-day candle body closes. So ultimately, main focus here is about $2.27, almost $2.28. I would round it to $2.30. After we get that, we will most likely target these highs at about roughly $2.56. But until we actually reclaim these highs, this is going to be, a very big level for us to actually reclaim. But until we actually reclaim this, lower price action is not out of the picture. We could still see lower price action. The good news is that if we do hold these lows, we already have a significant low here. We also have this significant higher low. These are major, liquidity wicks. So if we maintain this low, then structure is still pretty bullish because we have that higher low structure. We just need the higher highs. So we actually want to break over these previous highs up here at about $2.66. So once we get that, XRP is officially in a bullish structure where we will most likely target these highs from January at about roughly $3.40, which we would love to see that. But until then, we still need to be cautious and we just need to be careful on what Bitcoin does next. And right now, Bitcoin, this is what Bitcoin looks like. So we have that fair value gap being filled on the 3-day, even on the daily as well. But on the 3-day, when I really kind of look at this, okay, we're starting to have a nice move here, even off of these lows. So we have that liquidity wick down into the demand zone. We're starting to break a little bit to the upside. Key thing to look at here, okay, if we zoom out real quick, the key thing to look at here is we are now starting to break over the candle body closes from back here on these highs. Now, I originally was looking at the weekly because this is what the weekly looks like, okay? And when it comes to the weekly, the main focus here is actually clearing over the May highs. We want to break over 109K, get a nice close above 109K, and ultimately break over this upper trend line to confirm that Bitcoin is bullish. That will invalidate lower price action across the board. And we should start to see Bitcoin dominance actually dropping during that time. Until we get that nice push though on Bitcoin, we still need to be aware of some of these recent highs, like around 108.7K, which is from June 9th and also June 12th. This is the 3-day, by the way. So this will basically act as resistance until we really get a big break over it. And during this time, we're so close to that all-time high on Bitcoin. It's very important to just be cautious when we get closer to these all-time highs, because that's where we could start to see major rejections. For an example, we have this all-time high back here from December when we were trading during this time, right? We had this all-time high, and this price action here from January was getting very close to breaking over it. As you can see, we actually closed right around it. This was resistance. We had that nice wick, and then we sold off. So until we get a nice 3-day candle close and a weekly close over these previous all-time highs from May, just be very cautious because of how high Bitcoin dominance is. Now, this thing did wick to about 65, almost 66% exact. And right now we're trading at about 65.32, which is why we are starting to see some nice gains on the daily. 20+% gains, 13+% gains. The reason for that is because of how low Bitcoin dominance actually dropped. And we want to see this thing officially top out. Overall, on the 3-day closes, okay, we could see that most of the closes here was right around the highs from May, the beginning of May. We don't want to see Bitcoin dominance have major impulses here. What does major impulses look like? Well, they look like this from March of this year, where we just have those massive bullish, candles. We want to see momentum dying down on Bitcoin dominance while Bitcoin is starting to really have a nice uptrend start. Why? Well, because the higher Bitcoin goes while Bitcoin dominance is dropping, that's alt season. That's what alt season looks like. So until this thing really starts to drop heavy, the market's going to be pretty boring for altcoins. But even slight drops could cause altcoins to surge. Like, for an example, the 20+% gains, the 10+% gains. That's just off of Bitcoin dominance dropping, a percentage point, which is crazy. That's why I keep saying that altcoins will surge once we start to really see, this chart sell off. And I don't think that I need to tell you guys that, this thing on the weekly, when you zoom out, has a lot of downside potential to it, which means we have a lot of upside potential for altcoins. And by the way, big shout out to blockchain backer, Coinbase versus altcoin market. You are not bullish enough. And this is showing us that Coin, aka Coinbase, has front run the entire altcoin market. Altcoins are getting ready for a big push. This is why I keep saying that we are getting very close. Capitulation has been shaking the market for quite some time. And if you guys really want to take a look at what capitulation looks like, check out the total 3, which is the altcoin market compared to Bitcoin. We have been in this massive downtrend since about 2023. Even with the recent moves in November into December and January of, this year, guess what? We continue to sell off against Bitcoin. Even those previous, highs from like November, December, January, we were just trading at resistance while altcoins were going crazy. But this is very similar, right, to back in 2020 into 2021, where we had this massive altcoin capitulation. During this time, everyone was giving up on altcoins. Nobody wanted to touch altcoins. Everyone was bearish. Everyone was negative. And then guess what? Look at what ended up happening in January of 2021, all the way into May of 2021. Altcoins surged against Bitcoin. The same exact thing is happening here, where altcoins against Bitcoin are so weak. And that's why when you look at like XRP Bitcoin or HBAR Bitcoin or ADA Bitcoin, most of them look like they're getting completely slaughtered. And that's because of how high Bitcoin dominance actually is. But once we start to see altcoins wake back up, and if we go off of what blockchain backer is saying here with Coin, if we're going to follow Coin, because in previous times we have followed Coin, this is basically like a lagging factor. If we're about to watch altcoins wake up in a big way, we will see altcoins actually break out against Bitcoin on this chart. We'll also see Bitcoin dominance dropping at the same exact time that Bitcoin is so close to making a new all-time high, and so are stocks. This could be the most, this would be the most bullish setup for, crypto, stocks, and for altcoins specifically, since going all the way back to 2021. This is a very exciting time for the altcoin market, for crypto itself, and even for traditional finance like stocks as well. So the entire market right now, the entire environment is still telling us that we should be very bullish, even at a time where we still continue to see all this noise about the Israel-Iran situation, and we're starting to hear more talks about why we should be scared and fearful. It's all noise to get us distracted away from what's actually happening right now, which is one of the most bullish setups since going back to 2021. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.